Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this pretty and simple little Christmas card. And I'm not changing up much about this when I make it again today, except I wasn't happy with the stamping on the front of here, and so I'll be using my Stamp-A-Majig to help me get it straight. On the inside, I have a sentiment and a couple of little snowflakes to match the front. So let me tell you what you need to make this card. You need a Whisper White card base that measures 8.5 by 4 inches, and then you score at 4.5, and it's going to leave you with a 1/4 inch short on this end, and that is to accommodate our pretty little trim here on this side of the card. Then we need a piece of real red that is 3 5/8 by 5 3/8, which is going to sit here on the card, leaving room for our ribbon trim. Then we need another piece of Whisper White that is 3.5 by 5 1/4, and this is going to sit on the front of our card with a very thin border around it here. And then you need a piece of Dazzling Diamonds glimmer paper, scrap to cut out the little snowflakes, and we need some scrap red, and I'll show you what I've got here. I've started to cut out my ribbon trim, but I want to finish that on camera so you can see exactly what I did. So this trim needs to be at least, well, this needs to fit on this, which is 5.5, so I'd say 6 inches, so that you can trim and make sure you've got ends that make sense on the end of here, and at least a couple of inches wide so you can easily get it into your punch. All right, so let's just get started. The first thing I did was take this panel that's going to have this pretty embossing folder on it. And this is one that's in the new catalog, and for the life of me, I can't remember what the name of it is. But it is this pretty snowflake embossing folder. And I'll tell you exactly how I did this. I put this card so that, and you certainly could put the whole, try to get the whole image on here, but I knew I wasn't going to quite fit the whole image. So I decided to put this snowflake here. I'm going to put this on the red so you can see what I'm talking about. This piece of the snowflake here is where I put my paper, so that that corner fit that snowflake. And if you set it out just a little bit and then square up your paper, you have room for these parts of the embossing folder to fit just inside on both sides. And the other thing I will tell you about, when you run this through your Big Shot, I put a little piece of washi tape right under here so I could watch it disappear in the Big Shot, and I didn't run it all the way to the end because I found that when it did, because this piece of paper was outside the rim of the embossing folder, it left a little line, and I didn't like that. So if you just put a little piece of washi tape so you know not to go beyond a certain point, to stop rolling it through, roll it back, and then pull it out. So, and I've already done mine here, and so I've got my embossed piece for this, and we have our red piece here, and both of these can just be adhered right to the card. So I'm going to do that here. And I'm going to put this so that I've got the same amount of margin on the top side and the bottom, and that I know will set up the amount of room that I need on this side for my trim. Then on this piece, what I did was I used a two-way glue pen, and I have this giant two-way glue pen, and let me get a little piece of scrap paper here. So what I did was, and this is, the technique on this took me a couple times to get it just right. This is the kind of glue that is blue when you apply it and then dries clear. And so what I did was I used it straight up and down and used it along the interior of the snowflake because I was trying to get the glue just on the raised pieces. Now I did find that as I got to the edges, I got a little on the messy side. So I tried to, on those edges that went off the page, keeping this very perpendicular and just dragging it across those places. And see, I've already done it here. I've got glue off of the snowflake, which I really didn't want. And I will tell you that it does dry clear even if you get a little bit of dazzling diamonds on it. Then you can use your glue eraser to make it go away. And as I got towards the ends here, not to drag a lot of glue onto the card, I was trying to just dab it on the edges here, sometimes more successfully than others. And like I said, I did find that I could erase some of that glue after. I'll take a little bit of it off, however, right away if I can. Okay, so now I've got glue, and by turning this in the light, you can catch those places where you don't have any glue and just go back and dab a little bit in. Okay, the next thing I did, since glitter stops other things from sticking, and I wanted to use one of these pretty faceted gems in the center of my work, I went ahead and I put my center in straight away. That way it's glued to the card without any of the glitter underneath. And that way that'll stay on there and be nice and secure. Then I have my dazzling diamonds here, and I just spooned some of the dazzling diamonds over the top of the snowflake here and let it run back into my container. And then I did use, let's see, where did it go? My brush here to wipe away excess amounts of the glitter in places that I didn't necessarily want it, although glitter does have a bit of a mind of its own and seems to go places that only it seems to understand how it gets there. That spot just doesn't have any glue on it. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to that spot there and add a little bit more of the dazzling diamonds. And there, I think I'm pretty happy with that. I've got a little excess where I smudged the glue, but frankly, if it's in the middle of this snowflake, I don't know that it matters much. That's not bad. I'm going to have a little piece right up here that I'll probably have to use my glue eraser on, but that appears to be it. So isn't that just pretty? I just think that came out so nice, and I'm pretty pleased with that. So I'll put my dazzling diamonds away here, get it out of the way, And then we can go on, and of course it's glitter, so it is just gonna go everywhere. I have sort of a love-hate relationship with glitter. I love the way it looks, and it's just messy. It's just messy. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is the sole stamp on the front of this is this pretty Merry Christmas. And this Merry Christmas comes from the Star of Light Christmas set, and I just love this font. I think it came out really, really pretty. And since it is kind of floating here on the bottom of this card, I put it on going to use my Stampin' Majig to get this on here straight. And if I look at the sample, I want it right here between the bottom of the snowflake and the bottom of the card. So I'm going to set my Stampin' Majig here and see if I can get my sentiment straight the way I want it. In fact, let me move this up so I make sure you can see what it is I'm doing. So I think right there, and I think that that looks straight to me. So I'll set my Stampin' Majig in place, then move this out of the way, and I've got my stamp mounted here, my Merry Christmas stamp, and I'm using real red ink. So I will just ink up my sentiment here and maybe do one practice stamp on my, well, it would be good to do it right side up, so I'm glad I did that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm ready to go here, and I've got my Stampin' Majig set where I want. So I'm going to just put that down, move this away, and I'm going to let this sit here for a second for that ink to soak in. And there we go. I've got a perfectly straight Merry Christmas on here. That's excellent. Okay, so now we need another piece. Actually, we don't need another piece. The interior of our card is white. So once again, this one for the next piece comes out of the Holly Berry Happiness stamp set. And it says, "May the happiness of family, the joys of friendship, and the warmth of love surround you this season." I thought that was just a lovely sentiment. So this one I also put on my Stampin' Majig so that since it's such a big stamp, I wanted to make sure that I got this set not only straight but centered on the inside of this card. So I think that does it there. So I will set my Stampin' Majig down, move that away. This should be nice and inked up. And I'm going to push this down. And hopefully this will be both centered and straight on the inside of the card. There we go. And if you've not used a Stampin' Majig, it is wonderful. All you really have to do is, give a quick demonstration here. Set your plastic sheet right into this corner. This is basically a T-square. And this has got a little bit of a rubberized bottom so that it stays put when you put it in place. And you put your Stampin' Majig down around this plastic piece, and you take any stamp, put it in the corner, and stamp down. And there you've got your stamp. Then you can place it any place you want on your card. Let's say I only half stamped this. I could put this right over the top, move this back into place, and be assured that when I put my stamp down, it's going to come down in the very same place. So it's really a very handy and inexpensive stamp positioner. I think these are, I don't know, $10 or $12 in the catalog, and they're definitely worth it. In fact, I have 2 or 3 of them that I use in my classes so that people who are not as sure about straight, and I know I certainly understand that because I'm one of them, can use this easily to help them with straight. So I'm pretty happy with this, and I'm pretty happy with the way this came out, except that I've got a little bit of a smudge. I must have red ink on my hands here someplace. Red is one of those colors that it does seem it kind of gets all over. And I've got a tiny little smudge on the inside of this card. And I think I've showed this on many of my cards. This is a little finishing nail file that your nail tech might use when you get your nails done. And I asked my nail tech if she would buy me at her supplier a package of these. And it feels like a lifetime supply. There were so many of them. And then I cut them in half, and it's just a little sanding block. And what I can do is use it on that tiny light smudge. And I've got 2 of them. And it literally sands them away. So sometimes when you think a card is lost, because that was right in the middle of everything, so that saves the day an awful lot of the time. Okay, so now we have our card here, and we have our piece here, and so this can now just be mounted on here. And because I've already got the glitter on there, I'm going to use my Tombow on the back here, so I don't have to lay this down and put snail on it. Okay, so there we go. And I'm going to place this here so that I get an equal small border all the way around here. And the nice thing about Tombow, of course, is that you can move it around until you get it down where you want it and you're happy with it. So there we go. All right, now on to the next piece. That's all the stamping we're going to do, so I can put the stamps out of the way as well as the ink. And the next thing I want to show you about is this trim. We have this lovely little punch, and it's a ribbon trim punch, and it makes this very pretty border. And this is a piece I was experimenting with just to see exactly how it worked, and there doesn't seem to be a right or a wrong side with this. It looks like it's the same on both sides. Anyway, let me show you the trick about doing this punch. First of all, on the punch itself, and I'm going to bring this up to the camera so you can see it, and I think you can, right here on just where you put the paper in, there are 2 little lines, one on either side. And when you start punching out your detail, it's recommended that you start your paper on one of those lines. And I'll put this in here, and I'm going to stand because this is a punch that's you need a little bit of force with. So, and you push it as far as you can against this backdrop, and you stamp or punch. And what that does is it starts it for you so you have a nice flat border. Then to complete your length here, in order to get it to match up exactly, what you're going to want to do is take this edge here that you've already punched out and line it up against that line again. Then when you put your punch in, what you're going to do is line what you've already punched out, exactly here with the edge of what's left to be straight pushed against the back of the punch. Then when you punch, it will meet up perfectly and you'll get straight. If you don't do that, what you'll end up with is it looks like it's straight, but it's slightly raised or slightly lowered, or you're liable to get a piece on the end that leaves a little residue, and it'll start looking wonky. So I did this one, and I think that's almost enough to do the edge. So what I'm going to do is what I just told you about, is I'm going to stick this straight piece here right in against that line and line up this that I've already punched here exactly, making sure that this other piece is back against the back of the punch, and then punch down, and it should continue on and give you a good image. Oh, I overpunched. So I'm going to line this one up on this side and do that same thing again here. Okay, now I've got a nice long strip, and so I'm just going to cut this one off here, right up that edge, and there we've got a strip that's more than long enough to go on our card. Okay, so what I did to connect all of this, get rid of all of this stuff here, was I wanted to put this behind this piece so it's just kind of peeking out from the front and doesn't go past the edge, and if it does, not by much. So I need to have this be right on this edge on the back side. So starting with an edge that the punch made for me here, right along that edge and lining it up, I can see that where this is going to need to be cut to fit, because you can see through the little hole, I'm going to cut this to fit this exactly. So I'm going to cut straight up on this side. Okay. So there's the piece that I know is going to fit on the edge of my card. And for this, what I'm going to use is a little bit of Tombow. And I am just going to dot my Tombow, providing I can get some Tombow out of this. I am just going to dot my Tombow. Oops, got lots of it now. So let me scrape some of that off. There we go. Well, maybe I can use this as a little applicator, because what I want is the glue just right along the edge, the top edge of this, to stick to the back of the card. So I'm going to dot some Tombow on here, knowing full well that I'm going to also cover this edge, and when I do, I'm going to be able to erase the glue if any of it should leak out. Okay, I guess I need my tweezers. So now what I'm going to do is on the back side of this edge here is where I'm going to place this little piece of trim, and I know that this is cut to fit on here exactly, and I'm going to do it so that I can see the edge of the card through here, so I know where I need to have it be exactly the same all the way across. And because it's Tombow, I can move the edges out, and you can see here I started it so that a little tiny edge of the card shows through and covers up the little round holes all the way across. And I think you can see I got that exactly the same. So that on this side, this edge is right up against the edge of the card and just shows the upper swirl trim. And I think that's really, really very attractive. All right, then I used some of our 1/8 of an inch ribbon trim, and I wanted to hide the back side of this on this side and add trim on the other side. So what I did was I used snail, a combination of snail and Tombow. I put snail all, whoops, that one's not going to work. I put snail all along the back side of the ribbon to go around both the front and the back. Then I placed my ribbon right to the edge of the card and pushed it down in place all the way to the top. I wrapped it around the front of the card, and it turns out that it goes almost right down the center of this little white piece that we've set aside here. So put that into place, and I trimmed off the edge right at the bottom of the card. Then I used a little dab of Tombow on the edge here to anchor that ribbon in place. And I can see that I need just a tiny bit of adjustment here for that one to go down and this to be cut off by the other side. So it fits absolutely exactly along the edge of the card, and we have this pretty decorative border to one side, and the card opens, and I can feel a little bit of glue holding that card to the inside. So I'm going to have to use my glue eraser here on the inside, and I can even see the little bit of glue sticking out of the edges here of the ribbon. And so if I go all along this edge of the ribbon here, I should be able to close the card and not have it stick. So it looks like just a little bit more at the absolute bottom. There we go. Okay, so now to finish off the inside of the card, what I did was I used a little bit of Dazzling Diamonds glimmer paper, and I cut these two little snowflakes from the Seasonal Layers Thinlit dies, and there are 3 snowflakes in the Thinlits. This very large one, and this one, and this one. And so I cut out the medium-sized one and the little one, and this is what I got. I didn't cut out the big one because I thought it would be too big for the interior of the card. So here I have these two, and while I like the size of this one, it didn't match the front snowflake very much at all. So I ended up only using these little ones. And what I did was I put a little bit of Tombow. Let me get my silicone mat here. I put a little bit of Tombow on the back of the snowflake here. And I put one of them right up here by the sentiment and put that in place. And then again, using a little bit of the Tombow here. Oops, that's way too much. A little bit of the Tombow dotting on the back here of the other snowflake. And I put that in place towards the bottom of the card here in the corner. And I guess I need to hold that in place for a second. Then to finish off the embellishment of those, what I did was I took a couple of rhinestones. Since this theme is all silver here, I thought rhinestones would be good. So I added a little rhinestone detail to the interior of the snowflake here, and they just fit in the center hole of the snowflake. And in fact, doesn't feel very raised at all as a result of fitting down inside the little opening on the snowflake. And that way I thought it mimicked the front of the card. So again, not a complicated card, actually a pretty simple one, but I think the impact is good. I think that this card is just very attractive. And again, simple, and sometimes simple is the best. I've got one coming up that's going to be a lot more complicated, but I think there's an elegance in the simpleness of some of these. And everything that I've got here can be purchased on my 24/7 shop, which is www.lbedinger.stampinup.net. And I think that's a pretty good project for the day. And if you don't already have a demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. And the details for joining my team are listed below the video always, including my phone number if you want to chat about it. Actually, you could chat about anything. I had a lady call me the other day who was thinking about doing paper pumpkin, and paper pumpkin is really kind of exciting for October and November because they don't usually do it. And in fact, I think this might be the first time they've ever done it. The two kits are linked. They're going to coordinate with one another. Now, they'll independently stand as a kit in October and a kit in November, but there are some unique opportunities to combine things. And I think that I'll start doing a video at least once a month on some paper pumpkin alternatives. And so I'll be doing some videos showing you what else you can do or what you might be able to add to a paper pumpkin to kind of jazz it up. The other thing that happens is that if you put an order in with me, if you put in an order of $25 or more, you get a free product gift from me at the end of the month, either a product gift or a handmade gift by me, and a reusable card. And if you put in any order with me, your name goes into a drawing. And this month, the drawing is for the bundle that is called Merry Little Labels, which is a stamp set and a punch, a label punch. And it's set up for Christmas and other things, and it's absolutely a very pretty set, and I think I've even used it in a couple of videos already, and I know I'll be using it more. But that's the prize draw for the month, and so I'll be back soon with more projects, and see you soon. Bye!